Welcome back, everybody, and I hope you're coming back to another episode of Mondays with Mundy. That's me, Jim Mundy, the Union League Legacy Foundation historian. Now, it's been a while since you've seen me uh, filming from my third floor garret at home, but it's nice to be back. It really is. It's been a couple months, so welcome back, quite literally. And also, this episode is being broadcast on November 30th, and I hope that everybody had a good, relaxing and enjoyable Thanksgiving holiday. I know I did. So I certainly will when I have it. All right. So our story tonight has to do with the Union League Clubhouse and the fact that in 1938, the League discovered it didn't own all of its property. And it's quite a story. It's a really fun story. So let's get going with it, shall we? All right. So I have to share my screen. What I'm going to do with this. All right. I go up here and do slideshow. And I go there to the beginning. And it worked. Hey, maybe I'm not as rusty as I thought I was. All right. So the Union League Clubhouse is for sale. What's the story? Let's find out. So here we are. Philadelphia Inquirer, May 23rd, 1938. This is a notice. As you can see, this is actually an auction notice, a real estate auction notice. It's number lot 450, and it's the 8th ward in which the Union League was located in 1938. And it tells us that an undivided 1/4 interest in all that certain message or a measure of number 1418 Sansom Street and lot of ground on the south side of Sansom. So now we're talking the Union League property. All right. In the 8th ward, containing in front 16 feet and in depth 65 feet 2 inches. And it goes on and on. And then if you go down to the bottom of that one paragraph, it says subject to 99-year lease dated November 18th, 1904. Oh, lease. So go down to the bottom sentence, and it turns out that this property is to be sold as the property of William S. Castleman, also known as William S. Castleman. So apparently he's the owner. Actually, he was one of 4 owners. And the way that story goes very quickly is that shortly after the Civil War, Cecilia Carr purchased the property, turned it into a 3-story brick row home, like so many other row homes in Philadelphia. She would marry Thomas French, and they would have a family that would include 4 grandsons, one of whom was William Castleman. His 3 siblings were Arthur, who was a doctor, and another sibling, Paul, both of whom lived in Camden, New Jersey. A 3rd brother was named Mark. He was a lawyer and lived in Haddonfield. And then William lived in Pine Hill, New Jersey. So at this point in time, it turns out they are actually the 4 owners of 1418 Sansom Street, not the Union League. And it's funny because, I'll go down. So this is what the house looked like. And this is obviously a modern photograph, but you can see the Sansom Street side of the clubhouse. And 1418 would be just about in the middle of those 2 Trumbower additions. All right. To give you some idea of what we're talking about. And then at the turn of the 20th century, this is what the League House looked like. And that's Sansom Street on the right. And you can see there are no Trumbower additions, but there are brick row homes beyond the clubhouse itself. And this is what the clubhouse looked like at that point in time. It went about maybe a little less than halfway down the block, right? And on the right-hand side on Sansom Street, you see a star on a property. That's 1418, all right? And as you can see, though, the rest of the block is full of other row homes or brick homes. And all throughout the late 19th and early 20th centuries, the League was trying to purchase all those properties so that it could expand to the end of the block, basically. That would include, as we know today, the 2 Trumbower additions of 1910 and 1911. But turns out that Cecilia Carr would never sell. She wouldn't. But she did agree to lease the land to the League in 1904. And this is the survey of the property that was made at that point in time. So they knew exactly what the League was leasing. Okay, there you go. 16 feet wide. You can see it. There are the measurements right there in front of us. All right. And the survey was done of the property by William C. Cranmer, surveyor and regulator on the 3rd District on February the 2nd of 1909. So that's what this looked like at that point in time. So the lease itself, though, was actually dated November the 18th of 1904. All right. So here we go. Now, obviously, Cecilia Carr and Thomas French died. The property was inherited by the four grandsons, so they are the owners of it in 1938. And that gets us back to this. All right, so what's the story? All right, well, when a property goes up for auction, the sheriff's department would come along and slap up a sign on the side of the building. And here we are. So here we have a sale sign on the side of the Union League Clubhouse with the notice that the auction is taking place on Monday, June the 6th, 1938, room 653 in Philadelphia City Hall. All right. And as you can imagine, this made the news. There was nothing else. I mean, everything. I mean, it's the summertime in Philadelphia. It's boring. Nothing else is going on. And everybody in Philadelphia knows now that the league, part of the league, is up for sale. So what's the backstory here? Well, it turns out that among the people who noticed this were John B. Kelly, who was the chairman of the City Democratic Committee, and Francis W. Sullivan, who was the chairman of the 8th Ward Democratic Committee. And of course, the 8th Ward, we discovered, is where the League Clubhouse is situated. So they're thinking like, geez, maybe we could buy that property and maybe we can do something with it. And so they were thinking that if they could purchase the property and if they could make it legally possible, they would force the league then to cut a hole in the side of the Sansom Street clubhouse, and they would build their own clubhouse for the 8th Ward Democratic Club. All right. So here we go. You gotta love this. So this is Francis Sullivan, but this is a quote in the papers. That's where I got it. The plot is a very, very fine location. I would like to have it for use of the 8th Ward Democratic Club. You can imagine what must have been going on inside the clubhouse itself. It had to be bonkers, just absolutely crazy. But it turns out, though, that, well, anyway, the auctioneer gets up to lot 449, and he moves on to lot 450. He looks down at his sheet and discovers that it's not for auction after all. It turns out that William Castleman, this is the backstory to how the building got up for sale in the first place. So William Castleman, who we noted earlier, was listed as the owner of the property, borrowed $5,000 from a neighbor of his in Haddonfield named Francis Clark. And William Castleman reneged on the loan. And of course, to get that loan, he used the property he owned at 1418 Sansom Street for collateral. So what is Francis Clark going to do? Well, the only recourse he has is to basically sue Castleman for ownership of the property to get his money, to force him to sell the property so he can get his $5,000. At this point, it's $5,000, 500 lawyers' fees, and $32.12 in taxes. So that's what he's trying to get out of William Castleman by forcing him to sell the property at 1418 Sansom Street. And as I said, the auctioneer gets to lot 450. He looks down at his sheet of paper and he yells, "Stayed," which means it's not going up for auction. So what happened? It turns out then that Francis Clark's attorney had put an indefinite stay on the property because he understood and realized that you can't sell 1/4 of that property. You have to sell the whole property itself. And so he needed time to put those legal machinations in place in order to purchase or to sell the whole property itself. So it would still go up for sale, but just not on June the 6th, 1938. So the league was given a reprieve. All right. Now that reprieve also enabled the league then to negotiate with the four Castleman brothers for the sale of the property, which they agreed to do. And why wouldn't they? At this point, they don't want the publicity. Plus, the league described them in the newspaper as all good Republicans. So why wouldn't they just sell the whole plot to the league and get it over with? And that ends that. And that's what would happen. So the league would eventually buy the plot within that year, 1938. And so here we have from our archival collection. This is in the archives. This is the actual agreement of sale between William Castleman Jr. et al., sellers, and the Union League of Philadelphia. And you can see the premises at 1418 Sansom Street. And Brown and Williams were the law firm for the union. And it turns out that Miller Brown and Ira Jewel Williams were also members of the league. Surprise, surprise. And here we have the deed. All right. And you can see this is the actual document then. This is the legal document that transferred ownership of the property from the Castlemans to the Union League itself. And this is what it looks like on the left-hand side. The indenture, you can see it's dated November the 9th, 1938. On the right-hand side, American Title Company, that is the insurance, the title for the insurance. So the property was listed at $40,000. That's what the league would pay for it. And the league insured it, which means they now own it. So there you go. So, and this is what the league still looks like today. So forgive my cell phone photography. It's the only way I could get up close and see. So there's the Sansom Street door. And if you look up the wall and to the left, so go up above the door, go to the third floor and the fourth floor. On the left-hand side, you can see what looked like a number of, those are like limestone blocks protruding from the side of the building. That's actually the meeting point where the 15th Street building meets the middle building. So 15th on the right, 1910, middle building left, 1911. And that's just about where 1418 Sansom Street was located. So can you imagine? So what would that look like? The Eighth Ward Democratic Club Committee. So anyway, I think I still get a kick out of that story. I've known it for years, and it's a fun story. And there you go. So close, but saved at the end by all kinds of good stuff. So that's the end of the story today, folks. I hope you've enjoyed it. I certainly have. I think it's a great story to tell. So there you go. Well, thanks for watching as always. Welcome back. And we'll be back in 2 weeks with another episode of Mondays with Monday. So in between, stay well and take care. And thanks again. Bye now.